Oh, well, good morning. It's so interesting when you come back to the place you graduated from. You just wonder how in the world did 18 or so years or 15 years go by since you came and graduated, and it's wonderful to see you all here. I will just say I'm very familiar with having to go to chapel even when you don't want to go to chapel. So thank you for coming to chapel. And I appreciate you all. Yes, you can give yourselves a clap. That's fine. But yeah, it's just wonderful to come back home. I travel a lot. I spend about 100 days a year on the road, 125,000 air miles last year. So I'm gone a lot, and it's always great to come home to Rochester and Wegmans, okay? When you leave this area, you will miss Wegmans like you never thought you could. And you'll learn that grocery stores close. That was new to me. I didn't know grocery stores close, but they do. But I'm going to talk to you today about something that's actually kind of personal to me, and hopefully it'll relate to you in some way. And like Dennis said, please feel free to find me during this week with any question about anything that I said or even something I didn't say that maybe you are looking for more clarification on. But I want to talk to you today about two particular points: doubt and the question of, do all religions lead to God? These are common things that I hear as I travel around speaking to a range of different people about why I think Christianity is true versus other religions, why I think there's evidence for Christianity. But first, I'd like to share with you a quick story. An atheist was taking a walk through the woods, admiring all that the nature offered him. What majestic trees, what powerful rivers, what beautiful animals, he said to himself. As he walked alongside the river, he heard a rustling in the bushes behind him. He turned to look, just in time to see a 7-foot grizzly bear charging towards him. He ran as fast as he could up the path. He looked over his shoulder and saw the bear closing in on him. He tried to run even faster, so scared that the tears were coming to his eyes, but the bear was even closer. His heart was pumping frantically as he tried to run even faster, but he tripped and fell on the ground. He rolled over to pick himself up and saw the bear right on top of him, raising his paw to kill him. And at that instant, he cried out, "Oh my God!" Just then, time stopped. The bear froze. The forest was silent. Even the river stopped moving. A bright light shone upon the atheist, and a voice came out of the sky saying, "You deny my existence all these years? Teach others that I don't exist, even credit my creation to a cosmic accident? And now you expect me to help you out of this predicament? Am I to count you, an atheist, as a believer?" The atheist, ever so proud, looked into the light and said, "It would be rather hypocritical to ask to be a Christian after all these years. But could you make the bear a Christian?" "Oh, well, okay, very well," said the voice. So as the light went out, the river ran, the sounds of the forest continued, and the bear put his paw down. The man breathed a sigh of relief, and then the bear brought both paws together, bowed his head, and said, "Lord, I thank you for this food that I'm about to receive." I think sometimes, guys, life circumstances can make us question what it is that we believe in. Right? Depending on where we are, depending on what's going on, it can affect the way that we believe what we were raised in, or maybe what we thought to be true. And maybe I'm just speaking to myself today, and that's fine, but I want to share with you a personal story of me that I don't even think Dennis knows, even though we've known each other for so long. I grew up in a Christian home. I went to youth group. I went to church Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings. I went to all of the different youth events, camps, you name it, I was there. I come to Roberts and was a Christian, was involved in the gospel choir. We had to take an Old Testament course and a New Testament course, which maybe you guys still have to do. And it was in my Old Testament course with my Christian professor, who was an awesome man of God, where I sat there for the first time and questioned everything I ever believed in. And I remember walking out of class that day saying to myself, there is no God. I remember looking up at the sky, at the trees, at the grass, and just being like, this is it. This is all there is. the sense of emptiness for the first time in my life, I began to feel. And he was just talking about how the Bible had come together, and I just had never thought about it before, and it just shook me. It just rocked my whole world. And for several weeks, I went on with this mindset, there is no God. And I couldn't tell a soul. I didn't think I could tell anybody. What was I going to say? I was in the gospel choir. People came to me to pray. What was I going to say? Oh, I don't know if I believe this anymore. I didn't feel like there was anybody I could tell. And so I kept it to myself. And over the course of the several weeks, I was like, all right, Alycia, if you want to think that there is no God, that's fine. But there's other things in your life then, other things that exist in this world that you are now going to have to come up with an alternate explanation for. If you want to say there's no God, that's fine. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to still answer these questions. You just change how you answer them. And eventually, I realized that there was no other answer, but that God was real, that Christianity was true. And I went on from there to pursue it again. And spoiler alert, I'm a Christian today. But the reality is, I don't know if my story is just mine or if any of you have ever related to that. And I think we do this. We question why we believe. I think that's okay. I think it's all right to wonder why you love. I think it's okay to wonder who it is that you love and to begin to really analyze why is it that you hold whatever belief you hold. Why is it that you hold to that belief? Because this questioning is not just for the religious person, it's for anybody of any religion. And see, we arrive at beliefs for a variety of reasons. For some people, it's certain experiences that they have in their life. For some people, it's evidence. They feel like they have evidence that has affirmed a particular belief. For other people, it's knowledge, emotion, logic or reason, culture. Right? When I travel around the world, some people believe in something because that is what their culture is, not just how you were raised, but that is what your culture does. And some people fear. Let me just believe in something because I don't know what happens after death and I want to make sure I'm okay. So there's a variety of reasons why people hold on to beliefs. But then when you start to question these things, maybe you start to question your experience. You start to question your culture, the way you were raised, the evidence that you thought you had. It can now make you doubt everything that you believed in. And so some people say, you know what? I was once religious, but now I doubt any and every God. I don't believe in any God at all, and now I would adhere to the belief of atheism or an agnostic who isn't really sure. Some people say, well, I don't doubt the existence of God, but I do doubt Christianity. A young gentleman I was just speaking with in India, that was his stance. I believe that there's something, but I just don't know if Christianity's it. And a lot of people say that because of science, or they say there's no evidence for Christianity. Science has somehow disproven God, specifically Christianity. But some doubt because God seems so far away. Look, God, if you want me to know you, then show yourself. Come right here. And if that's you, come on Wednesday, because I'm going to be talking about that. The whole session will be on that. But some doubt because of certain moral stances, certain things that happen socially, culturally, morality. How do we live? And some people say, I just don't like this whole Christian morality piece. And so what do? How do we handle this? Well, some of us just walk away. Some of us say, you know what? I'm done with all of this. I grew up in a Christian home. I don't think it's true anymore, so I'm just going to walk away and say, forget everything. Some people say, maybe you're more like me. You kind of feel ashamed. You kind of feel embarrassed. Like, who do I talk to? What if I ask this question and somebody thinks I'm doubting? What are they going to think of me? And so some people kind of just hold it in and say, well, I'll get to it at one point in my life. Maybe 30 years from now, or when I'm older, I'll get to it. And so then maybe we just kind of live in this state of agnosticism where we're not sure, is there a God, is there not a God? I don't know. Not really sure. But I will tell you, as actually one agnostic person said to me, he said, Alycia, I'm trying to sort this out because this position that I have, not knowing, is not livable. I've been in this position too long, and you can't live like this, never quite knowing. So some people walk away with doubt. Some people just kind of say, one day maybe I'll deal with it. I don't know. Maybe I'll figure it out. Just kind of leave it, or embarrassed. And there's a third category. And I think this is the category that is the way to go. Because I actually don't think doubt is bad. I don't think if you're a Christian and you're doubting, I don't think God is looking down at you and saying, see, I knew I shouldn't have just loved her. I'm disappointed in him. God actually is not looking down and thinking those things of you. He's not disappointed. He's not embarrassed. It is good to question. What does Jesus say is the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. If it doesn't make sense up here, then perhaps you're not fully loving. So it's okay to try to make it make sense up here so that you can truly, truly love. And so this third category, when we doubt, we can search for answers. We can use doubt as a springboard to find answers. Because the reality is that there are answers to questions in life, big answers. And I travel all around the world, and I find it's the same exact questions that people are asking. When I go to India, they're asking me the same questions that people here ask. When I go to Canada, Australia, it doesn't matter. It's all the same stuff. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? How do I live? Is there a God? Which God is it? There's so many religions. We're all asking these questions, and we need to find the answer to them. So in other words, we can use doubt to strengthen our understanding of Christianity and bring us to a deeper understanding of what really, really is true. But what about this idea of all religions lead to God? I hear that one very, very often. Is that really true? Well, the problem is that right from the beginning, we mess up. We mess up with this statement. When we say that all religions lead to God, we're saying they're all teaching the same thing. All the prophets are teaching the same thing. All the teachings are the same, the moral codes, and they're just little pathways that we try to use to get to God. So they all get there. But here's the thing. When you begin to look at the specifics of the different religions, you will find that they are actually very, very different. Muhammad, in Islam, Muhammad claimed to be the greatest and final prophet of a long line of prophets, including Abraham and Moses and David and Jesus. He was the final prophet in that whole line. But he never claimed to be divine. Jesus doesn't claim to just be a prophet. He claims to be God himself. The claim in Christianity of Jesus being divine is blasphemous in Islam. And I've gotten into many discussion with a Muslim over this. It makes them cringe. How dare you say that God would come to this earth and be like us? We're so dirty. We're so horrible. We're so sinful. You're saying God would do that? And to be honest, there's some truth to that. But I think that's one of the reasons why Christians are grateful for Jesus and for what God did, because we recognize a lot of those things. Buddhism teaches us that the ultimate goal is to eliminate sufferings and desires. Well, Jesus teaches us that the ultimate goal is for us to reach the fulfillment of our desire in knowing our Creator. His message is different than any other prophet, and he claims to be the way to God himself. But people still say, well, all these prophets' teachings, revelations, religions, they're just different little fragments of the truth, then aren't they? Just different pieces of it. Well, I hear this. People are climbing up a mountain, and the truth is at the top, and so they're just different pathways they're taking, but they're all trying to go up to the top of that mountain. Maybe some go forward, maybe some go up and go back and then go forward. I mean, different paths, but they're all going to the same place. But the reality is that you have to ask, okay, but if that's true, then what is at the top of the mountain? Because depending on which person I ask that's on that pathway, I'm going to have a different answer. Is it the Trinity God that Christianity talks about? Is it the Unitarian God that Islam talks about? Is it one of the 330 million gods that Hinduism talks about? What is at the top? And see, here's the thing. If we're all on a pathway to find truth, what we have to know about truth is that truth is exclusive, which means the truth excludes anything that contradicts it. So if I say to you, I am standing in Rochester, then that means that I am not standing in Australia. It means that I'm not standing in Venezuela. Okay? In other words, when I say I'm standing here, it excludes the possibility of me standing anywhere else in the world. Okay? Truth excludes other things. It can only be one thing. But I understand what people are getting at when they say these kind of statements. You know, we really don't want to believe a lie. So the most important question we have to ask is, what is truth? What is the truth? Or more specifically, to this whole mountain example, who is the truth that's at the top of that mountain? Which God? So again, which God is it then? Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, pursued going to different churches and came to the conclusion that none of the Christian churches were right. And he began to teach people that there is a true church needs to rise up, and he was going to lead it. And the idea of God in Mormonism is that there is one God, but there's also many others, one of whom Jesus is also one of. Mary Baker Eddy of Christian Science, she claims to reveal the truth about pain and suffering, and the pain and suffering that we experience isn't real. Muhammad claims that the real truth of the gospel was lost. The Injil, as they would say, is lost. And so he wants to reveal the real truth about who Allah is and who Jesus is through his teachings, which can be read in the Quran and the Hadith and etc. All of these prophets are pointing to something they say is the truth. So it's not answering a question, though, who is the truth? And interestingly enough, Jesus actually answers that for us. He says, I am the truth. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. As a respected French mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote several hundred years ago, he wrote that there are differences between Jesus Christ and Muhammad. Muhammad was not foretold. Jesus Christ was foretold. Muhammad slew. Jesus Christ caused his own to be slain. Muhammad forbade reading. The apostles ordered reading. In fact, the two are so opposed that if Muhammad took the way to succeed from a worldly point of view, Jesus Christ, from the same point of view, took the way to perish. Any man could do what Muhammad has done, for he performed no miracles. He was not foretold. No man can do what Christ has done. According to what Jesus said, he was not just another Jew. Muhammad performed no miracles. Jesus raised people from the dead. Muhammad never sacrificed his life for anybody. There would have been no point. That is not how salvation works in Islam. Jesus sacrificed his life because that's the reason why he came. He could heal. Jesus could heal because he's a healer. He could forgive sins because he's the forgiver. No one claims to be like him. They claim to talk about a God who was like him, but none of these prophets claim to be that being themselves. And so let's think back to our original question. Do all religions lead to God? Well, this is what I find interesting and beautiful about Christianity. Is because all the other religions are telling us, use this pathway and you'll get to God. Climb up that mountain this way. Climb up this way. Do this thing. And all these different paths will lead you up to God. You know what Christianity says? Christianity says, stop climbing. You'll never get there. And that's why God comes down. God comes down that mountain. It's completely different than what any other religion is advocating for. They want you to keep going, keep stepping and stepping and stepping, and hopefully one day you'll get there. And Christianity says you'll never get there. That's the whole point. It's a completely different idea. And so here we have a powerful concept that God comes down, not just because he wants people to believe in him, because he wants people to really know what he's like, to really experience him. He comes down to demonstrate his love. Christianity talks of a relational God. You can't just say, I love you. That's not good enough for a relationship. Your actions have to show it. If you tell me your God is loving and he never shows it in any way, then how do I know he really is? Just because you say it? Just because he says it? Relationship involves more than just your voice. It involves your actions. And in Christianity, only in Christianity, does God demonstrate his love for us in the greatest possible way through self-sacrifice. God is not going to feed himself on us. But he lets us know that true life exists, not in experiencing a person or a place, but rather a closeness and an intimacy with God. So no, I don't think that all religions lead to the same place. And to be honest, you'd be hard-pressed if you went to the Middle East, or you went to Pakistan, or you went to Afghanistan, and you said to one of the people there, oh, you're a Muslim, oh, I'm a Christian. Yeah, we're just all on the same pathway here. They would actually wonder what kind of Christianity you believed in. Because there is no acceptance of Jesus being divine or even dying on a cross in Islam, let alone being raised from the dead. So you can't really say that. So for those of you who have experienced some of the things that I talked about, doubt or maybe wondered about some of these different religions, hopefully in some way, this helped you answer some of those questions. But I'm also reminded as I talk about these things of Thomas. And many of you know his name as Doubting Thomas, which is fair. But that probably means he's a lot like some of us. And Thomas was a disciple of Jesus. He walked through life with Jesus. He saw him raise people from the dead. He saw him walk on water. He had all these experiences, miracles, and all these things. And yet he, like, to be honest, all the other disciples, didn't really fully believe him. Didn't really fully believe that Jesus was who he said he was until after his resurrection. So Jesus rises from the dead. He appears to the women. He appears to the disciples, and Thomas isn't there. Now imagine this. You've seen somebody die, and a few days later, your friends are telling you he's not dead anymore. Okay? We got to give Thomas a little bit of credit here. Okay? Dead people usually don't rise. Okay? So he's not stupid. He's completely normal in understanding that what you're telling me doesn't make any sense. So the disciples say, we've seen Jesus. Thomas doesn't believe them. He says, I will not believe until I myself see the scars and the nail prints in his hand and the scars in his side. In other words, what is Thomas saying? I want evidence. This is why I find it so interesting when people say to me, oh, Christians just believe because they want fairy tales or they want to feel better. They want to believe and have some kind of comfort for the afterlife. So that's why they believe in God. There's no evidence for Christianity, really. How about all the other historical works that are not Christian sources that talk about the fact that Jesus existed? Talk about the fact that he was crucified. Talk about the fact that it was Pontius Pilate who crucified him. Non-Christian sources, historical, credible sources that talk about Jesus' followers after his death. There is definitely evidence for Christianity. And Thomas, 2,000 years ago, was demanding the same. Don't tell me you saw him rise from the dead. I want to see for myself. So, a few days later, Jesus appears again. And this time, Thomas is there. And what does Jesus say to him? Take a look, Thomas. You see this? You see the scars? You see my side? You see my hands? And then he says to Thomas, now stop doubting and believe. In other words, you wanted your evidence, I gave it to you. Now believe. Belief in Christianity is not blind. Faith is not blind. I think we have a misconception of what faith is. If faith was blind, Jesus would never have given Thomas evidence before telling him to believe. Christianity was, you were never asked to believe blindly. Here's the Bible, go to church and just believe in God. That has never been what's been asked of you. It's been asked of you to look at the claims of Jesus. Look at what the Bible is teaching. Look at historical fact. Look at the world around you and see if Christianity offers you the best explanation. And this is what I love about the Doubting Thomas story, because Jesus himself says, or Jesus himself shows evidence and then tells Thomas to stop doubting and believe. And you know what Thomas's response was? My Lord and my God. I had the privilege of going to Thomas's tomb in India. That moment changed Thomas's life. 20 years later, he traveled to India and he spread the gospel there, and he started churches there. And you go there, and he's buried there. And you know what's written on Thomas's coffin? My Lord and my God. That bit of evidence changed a doubting man's life. Christianity offers you more than just words, platitudes, emotion. It offers you something concrete that you can have confidence in and believe in. And so I will be here all week. I would love for any of you to continue to come up to me and chat with me and speak with me. If you have any questions on anything I said, please come and find me this week. Thank you so much, and you're dismissed.